There was no warning before the explosion. Corporal Jake Miller and his squad were running across the street when the world turned into noise and fire. The explosion lifted him up like a toy and threw him hard against a wall made of concrete. The helmet broke. He couldn't hear anything else because his ears were ringing so loudly. Jake's chest hurt when he tried to breathe. He saw blood spreading across his uniform when he looked down. A piece of metal had cut deep into his side. He put his hand on it to try to stop the bleeding. His fingers got hot and sticky. He could see shadows moving through the smoke and dust. His team was going the other way. Someone was yelling, but the words sounded far away. Jake tried to yell, but his voice was too weak. They kept going. They thought he was dead under the rubble. His side hurt more and more. Jake knew he had to find a place to hide or he would die in the street. He dragged himself over to a nearby building that was falling apart. It hurt to move. There was blood on the ground behind him. Everything inside the building was ruined. The roof had come down. The furniture was broken into pieces. Jake pulled himself behind a thick wall and tried to catch his breath. His eyesight was getting worse. He knew that was a bad sign. He heard it then. A small sound that cut through the ringing in his ears. Someone was in tears. Jake made himself pay attention. The sound of crying was coming from the corner of the room. He dragged himself across the floor, leaving more blood behind. Then he saw her. A little girl was stuck under a fallen beam and pieces of concrete. She was probably no older than 5. But she wasn't a person. Her skin was pale blue and it glowed softly, like the light of the moon. Her big, almost purple eyes were full of tears. She reached out her small hand to Jake and said, "Help," in a voice that sounded like music. "Please help." Jake didn't think about his own pain. He forgot that blood was still coming out of his side. He forgot that enemy troops could come through that door at any moment. He could only see a scared child who needed help. He crawled over to her and stared at the beam. It was heavy and made of metal and concrete. He might have been able to lift it with both arms. But his left arm wasn't working right. The blast also hurt his shoulder. "It's okay," Jake said, trying to smile. "I'm going to free you." He got into position and pushed against the beam with his strong arm. His muscles were in pain. It felt like his hurt side was ripping open. But the beam did move a little. The girl opened her eyes wide with hope. Jake pushed harder. He thought about his little sister who was still on Earth. He thought about how scared she would be if she were stuck like this. He pushed so hard that black spots started to show up in his vision. The beam moved around more. A little bit more. Jake moved the beam just enough with one last push. The girl jumped out and hugged him around the neck. She was crying more now, but these tears were different. Tears of relief. Jake held her with his strong arm. His whole body was shaking. He could feel his strength fading. There was blood on the floor beneath him now. The building shook after that. This time there was another explosion, closer. There was dust on the ceiling. Jake heard the sound of incoming mortars. More bombs were about to fall. He looked around the room. There was no place that was safe. The walls were already falling apart. The ceiling could fall at any time. There was a corner, though, where 2 thick walls met. It was the strongest piece left. Jake dragged himself and the girl to that corner. She was crying again and saying things he couldn't understand. He wrapped his body around her and pulled her close. He stood between her and the rest of the room like a shield. The bombs began to fall. It felt like a hammer hit the building every time it blew up. Parts of the ceiling fell down all around them. The dust in the air was so thick that Jake couldn't breathe. He kept his body over the girl and things hit his back. One piece hit his head hard. For a moment he couldn't see anything. Now the girl was yelling. He could feel her little body shaking under him. He held her tighter and whispered things he hoped would make her feel better, even though she probably didn't understand English. He told her everything would be fine. He reassured her that she was safe. He wasn't sure if he was telling the truth. It seemed like the bombing would never end. Then it stopped slowly. The building came to rest. Everything got quiet except for the sound of small fires burning and guns firing far away. Jake tried to move, but his body wouldn't let him. He was really tired. The girl was talking to him. It sounded like her voice was far away. He could feel her pushing against him, trying to get away. After that, he heard new voices. People yelling in a language he didn't know. Heavy boots on cracked concrete. The girl began to scream. She sounded happy and kept saying the same things over and over. Someone touched Jake. Strong hands turning him over. He looked up and saw people. Aliens with blue glowing skin and big eyes. Their armor didn't look anything like what soldiers wear. These were soldiers from the other side. One of them knelt down next to the girl and looked for injuries. She was talking quickly and pointing at Jake. Jake couldn't tell what the soldier was thinking when he looked at him. Jake did his best to stay awake. He wanted to make sure the girl was really okay. But the dark was calling to him. His eyes were so heavy. The last thing he saw was the little girl next to him, kneeling down and holding his hand with both of hers. She was safe. That was the most important thing. Then everything went dark. Jake's eyes slowly opened. At first, everything looked white and fuzzy. He blinked a few times until he could see clearly. He was in bed in a room with smooth white walls that looked like they were glowing. The air smelled clean but strange, like metal and something sweet that he couldn't put his finger on. He tried to move, but his side hurt a lot. He looked down and saw new bandages on his chest and shoulder. Someone had taken care of his wounds. Someone had saved his life. But where was he? Jake pushed himself up on his elbows. That's when he saw them. There were 2 alien soldiers on either side of the door. Their dark armor reflected the white light. Their blue skin looked darker than the girl's skin. They both had guns that looked like rifles, but Jake had never seen guns like these before. As soon as Jake sat up, both guards pointed their guns at him. There was a low electric sound coming from the barrels. Jake's hands were visible and he froze. "Easy," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." The guards didn't put down their guns. They didn't say anything. They just stared at him with their big purple eyes that didn't show any emotion. Jake's mind was racing. He was in jail. That was clear. But why did they bother to help him? In a war this brutal, enemy soldiers didn't usually waste medical supplies on prisoners. Nothing made sense. He searched the room for anything that might be useful. There was only the bed. There are no windows. There was only one door and 2 armed guards. There was no way out of this room even if he wasn't hurt and was at full strength. There was no sound for minutes. Jake added them up. 5 minutes. 10. 15. The guards never moved. Never said a word. Just stood there and watched him like statues. Then the door opened with a soft hiss. Jake's breath caught when a woman walked in. She was almost 6.5 feet tall. Her skin shone brighter than any alien he'd ever seen, as if she had light inside her. The armor she wore looked ceremonial and had carvings on it. Her purple eyes were smart and sharp. She looked like she was in charge and powerful. A small person rushed into the room behind her. It was the girl. With a big smile on her face, she ran right to Jake's bedside. Her skin was glowing brighter than before, and it was pulsing with happiness. "You're awake," she said in English that sounded almost perfect but had a musical accent. She held his hand with both of hers. The woman who was tall moved closer. She looked at Jake for a long time before she said anything. Her English was perfect when she did. "I am Commander Vera," she said. Her voice was deep and heavy. "This is Lily, my daughter. 2 days ago you saved her life." 2 days. Jake had been out cold for 2 days. "Is she okay?" Jake asked, looking at the girl. "Did she get hurt?" Vera's face got a little softer. "She has some bruises. That's all. Because of you." She stopped for a moment. "You almost died to save her. You lost a lot of blood. Our doctor said you would have died in another hour." Jake nodded his head. "I'm happy she's okay. That's all that matters." "That isn't all that matters," Vera said, and her voice got serious again. "You are now bound to my daughter by our sacred law and the ancient code of my people. You saved her life when it was certain that she would die. You stood between her and danger. You are now her soul's protector. Her protector. You have to agree to the life bond ceremony." Jake looked at her. "What? I don't get it." "I did what anyone would do." "No," Vera said firmly. "Not everyone would do what you did. You were hurt. You could have hidden and tried to stay safe. You instead freed my daughter from the debris. Then during the bombing you put your body over her. Soldiers don't do this to kids who are enemies." Jake shook his head. "She was just a scared child. I couldn't leave her behind." "Exactly," Vera said. "You put her life ahead of your own. This is the most extreme kind of sacrifice. The law is clear. When someone saves a child from certain death by giving up something important to them, they are responsible for that child. You have to go through the ceremony to make this bond official." "But I'm a person," Jake said. "I'm not a part of your culture. This doesn't apply to me." Vera's eyes got harder. The light in her skin seemed to beat. "Do you think you can leave? You think you can save a child's life and act like it doesn't matter? You don't have a choice anymore. You can't deny that the bond is there. The ceremony just makes it official." Jake felt stuck. "Hey, I get that you have traditions. But I'm in the army. I have a responsibility to my own people. I can't just join your family or whatever this is." Vera said, "If you refuse, you will bring shame on my daughter." She said each word slowly and carefully. You tell her that her life isn't worth anything. You didn't care about saving her. You tell my whole family that we don't deserve honor. That's not fair, Jake said. Fair? Vera's voice got a little louder. You saved my kid. My one and only child. Do you know what that means to me? I owe you something I can never pay back. But our law says we have to have this bond. It's not about the money. It's about getting credit for what you did. It's about including you in something bigger than you. Lily still had Jake's hand in hers. With those big purple eyes, she looked up at him. Please, she said in a soft voice. Don't you want to keep me safe? Don't you want to be a part of the family? Jake's throat felt tight. He looked at the little girl who had almost died, who had been so scared under all that rubble. He remembered how tightly she had held on to him during the bombing. What does this bond really mean? Jake asked in a low voice. It means you have to protect her, Vera said. It means that you and I are both responsible for her. It means you can get to our family, our councils, and our holy places. It means we'll always be together. You become part of our bloodline. For life. Jake said again. I can never go? Vera said, you can go. But the bond stays. You will always be linked to Lily. You will always be there to protect her soul. The ceremony just helps people see what is already there. For a long time, Jake didn't say anything. He looked at Lily, who was still holding his hand. He looked at Vera, who was standing tall and proud. He thought about his family back on Earth. His sister. His mom and dad. Would they get this? Jake asked. What if I say no? Vera's face went blank. Then you insult everyone in my family. You make my daughter feel bad. And you show that people don't have any honor or respect for the holy. Is that what you want? Jake could feel how heavy the decision was. He could either go along with this strange alien ceremony and be tied to people he barely knew, or he could refuse and hurt a child who had done nothing wrong. There was no good choice. There's no easy way out. Lily held his hand tightly. She said, you're a good person. I know you are. You saved me even though you didn't have to. Don't go now, please. Jake shut his eyes. He thought about why he had signed up for the military in the first place. To keep people safe. To help people who couldn't help themselves. Wasn't that what he had done for Lily? He opened his eyes again and looked right at Vera. Okay, he said in a low voice. I'll do the ceremony. But I need to know what I'm agreeing to. I need to know it all. Vera smiled for the first time. It changed the way her face looked. You made the right choice. I'll explain everything. Then we'll make you a member of our family for good. The room for the ceremony was huge. Jake had never seen anything like this before. He could barely see the top of the ceiling because it was so high. There were carvings on the walls that glowed with a soft blue light. They showed battles, families, and strange creatures that he had never seen before. The floor was made of smooth black stone that acted like a mirror and reflected everything. Jake stood in the middle of the room in clean clothes that the aliens had given him. He wore plain white robes that felt weird on his skin. The bandages were new, but his wounds still hurt. He could move around without too much pain now. Commander Vera and little Lily stood across from him. They also wore ceremonial robes that were deep purple with silver threads that sparkled in the light. Lily seemed nervous. She kept looking at Jake and then at her mother. Vera stood perfectly still. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of life. But what made Jake's stomach turn was everyone else in the room. There were a group of human officers to his left. He knew some of them. There was General Patterson, a tough guy with gray hair and cold eyes. Colonel Brooks stood next to him and looked uncomfortable. 3 other officers that Jake didn't know stood in a line. Everyone looked at him like he was doing something wrong. To his right was a bigger group of aliens. They wore formal robes that were all different colors. Some of them had marks on their faces. Some people wore jewelry that lit up and pulsed. Jake understood that these were leaders. People of note. Everyone was staring at him. This is crazy, Jake heard General Patterson say to Colonel Brooks. We're letting them do some old-fashioned ritual on one of our soldiers. Orders came from the top, Brooks said back. They said this might help the talks for peace. Let it happen. Jake's hands were wet. This didn't feel right. As if he were betraying his own people in some way. But Lily smiled at him a little when he looked at her. That helped a little bit. 3 priests from another planet came into the room. Their robes were so white that they almost hurt to look at. Their skin was brighter than anyone else's. They moved slowly, carrying things that Jake couldn't quite see. They started to sing. Jake had never heard anything like it before. It wasn't exactly music. More like humming that came from deep inside them. More than one note at once. The sound filled the whole room and felt like it was vibrating through Jake's bones. It made his skin feel tingly. One priest came up with a crystal bowl in his hands. Another person had a curved blade that shone in the light. The third one had a white cloth. Vera moved closer to Jake. Lily walked with her, still holding her mom's hand. They made a triangle in the middle of the room. Jake didn't understand what the priest with the knife was saying. The words were old-fashioned and formal. Every syllable seemed to matter. After that, the priest spoke in English. His accent was strong, but you could still understand him. We come together to see the holy bond. The connection between the person being protected and the person protecting them. The connection between souls who have been through death together and lived. Time, distance, or even death can't break this bond. Jake's heart was racing. What had he said yes to? The priest looked at Jake. Please hold out your right hand. He did. His hand was shaking a little. The priest took the curved blade and cut Jake's palm before he could get ready. The cut was deep, but it was quick and clean. Blood quickly filled the space, running down his fingers and dripping onto the black stone floor. It hurt more than Jake thought it would. He shut his mouth tight so he wouldn't make a sound. He didn't want to seem weak in front of all these people. Next, the priest went to Lily. Give me your hand, child. Lily was scared, but she did what she was told. She put out her small hand and closed her eyes. The priest did the same thing. Lily gasped but didn't cry. Her eyes were full of tears when she opened them, but she didn't move. Vera then held out her hand without being asked. The cut was done. She didn't even move. The priest took Jake's bleeding hand and put it in Lily's palm. Her blood was warm against his. Then Vera put her hand over both of theirs and wrapped her fingers around them. Their blood mixed with hers and ran down their wrists in small streams. The three priests started to sing again. This time louder. The sound filled Jake's mind. He was dizzy. Then something took place. Something that can't happen. Jake's hand felt a rush of energy. It started where his palm touched Lily's and shot up his arm like a bolt of lightning. But it didn't hurt. It was warm. Living. It felt like something was flowing from them to him and from him to them. The warmth spread all over his body. His chest. His belly. His legs. His head. Everything felt tingly. After that, the feelings came. Jake could suddenly feel how Lily felt. He could not only see them on her face, but he could also feel them in his own chest. She was afraid. Glad. Happy. I'm nervous. At the same time. He gasped as the feelings hit him like waves. And Vera. He could also feel her. She was anxious. Proud. Protective. There was a love there that was almost too much to handle. And deep down there was a lot of sadness. A scar that had never healed. What is this? Jake whispered. He thought his voice sounded strange. Vera said softly, the bond is forming. You can feel us now. As we can feel you. And it was true. Jake knew they could feel what he was feeling. His confusion. His fear. His guilt for being here instead of with his team. Everything was out in the open. There was no place to hide. This time the priest spoke in a strong voice. Say what I say. I swear on my blood and my life. Before Jake could think, his mouth moved. I swear on my blood and my soul. To keep this child safe from all harm. To keep this child safe from all harm. To be there for her in the dark and the light. Jake said the words again. They all felt heavy. Very important. For real. To protect her until I die. To protect her until I die. As soon as Jake said the last word, he felt a rush of energy. The warmth got very close to being hot. It felt like the room was spinning. Jake thought he saw lights behind his eyes that weren't there. Colors that weren't real. For a moment he couldn't tell where he ended and Lily and Vera began. There was a link between them all. All one. Then it calmed down. The lights went out. The warmth turned into a soft glow. But the link stayed strong. Jake could still sense them. Less noise now, but still there. He would hear it as background music for the rest of his life. The priests took off their gloves. Jake looked at the palm of his hand. The cut was already healing. Getting better faster than it should be. In just a few seconds, only a thin silver line was left. A mark. Lily had the same mark. Vera said, the bond is complete. Even though she barely whispered, Jake could hear her voice clearly. You are now part of the family. Forever. Jake looked at his hand. At the silver scar that showed he was different. Things changed. Lily wrapped her arms around his waist and hugged him tightly. Jake could feel her happiness through the bond, which made him smile even though he was confused. General Patterson was speaking with the other officers. Jake heard some of the words. Fixing the damage. This needs to be taken care of. He can't go native. But Jake didn't care much. He was too focused on this strange new feeling in his body. This knowledge that two other hearts were beating in time with his. This link that felt old, strong, and completely scary. He had changed in some way. Something that is real and will last. This wasn't just a ceremony or a custom. The bond was real. Physical. He could feel it in every part of his body. He was now tied to them. He felt connected to her in a way he couldn't quite put his finger on. Jake realized there was no going back when he looked down at Lily, who was still hugging him and feeling her happiness mix with his own. No matter what happened next or what this bond meant for his future, he was now a part of their family. For all time. The day after the ceremony, Jake woke up feeling different. The bond was like a radio playing in another room, humming softly in the back of his mind. He could feel Lily's presence in the building, safe and happy. He could also feel Vera, who was awake and working with a clear mind. There were 2 guards in his room. But this time they didn't aim guns at him. One of them nodded in a polite way. Commander Vera wants you to come to the morning council. Jake followed them through hallways he'd never seen before. As he walked by, other aliens stopped and stared. A few people whispered to each other. It was very strange for a person to be able to walk around their military headquarters without any problems. But their faces changed when they saw the silver scar on his hand. A few people nodded. Some people touched their own chests, which looked like a sign of respect. There were alien officers in the council room looking at maps and tactical displays. Everyone stopped talking when Jake and his guards came in. The silence was heavy and made everyone feel uneasy. Vera was at the end of a long table. She said, "This is Jake Miller. He is connected to my daughter. He has the right to be here." An older male alien with scars on his face spoke up. "Commander, with all due respect, he is a person. He is the bad guy. We can't talk about our plans with him here." Vera said firmly, "He is family. The bond makes him one of us. Our law is clear." The officer with the scars looked unhappy but didn't say anything else. Jake sat down close to Vera and felt like everyone was looking at him. He was so nervous that his stomach hurt. Jake listened for the next hour as they talked about moving troops and getting supplies. But the most important thing he learned was why they were fighting. "Another sacred grove has been destroyed by the mining operation in Sector 7, one officer said. 300 years of growth. In 2 days it was gone. Another person said, "They don't care about our heritage sites. They only see things they can take." Jake paid close attention. Holy groves? Sites of cultural significance? He had been told something else. His bosses said that the aliens were attacking human colonies. That they were the ones who started it. But these people were talking about protecting their land. Jake talked to Vera alone after the meeting. "Those operations in mining. Do people run them?" "Yes," Vera said. "Companies from Earth. They promised to work together when they came here 15 years ago. They promised to respect our land. They lied. But the army said you attacked our settlements first." Vera's face got hard. "We told them to stop ruining our holy places. They said no. We fought to protect our land. Then your army came and called us terrorists, people who come in, when we are the ones who are being attacked." Jake was not feeling well. He thought about the people on his team who were his friends. About all the fights they had. Was everything based on lies? Jake went to more councils in the weeks that followed. The bond seemed to help him learn their language faster than he should have been able to. It was easy for him to learn words that should have taken him months to master. Vera said that the bond opened up the mind. Strengthened ties. Lily spent hours teaching him about their way of life. She showed him old books that had pictures of their past in them. Talked about how they felt about family, honor, and the land. Jake saw that these people were not that different from people. They cared about their kids. They paid tribute to their ancestors. They fought to keep what was theirs safe. One night, Jake and Vera sat on a balcony that looked out over the city. The war had destroyed some parts of it. Some parts were still beautiful and strange. Jake asked, "Can I ask you something? Why did your people help me get better? I'm a soldier who is human. I was your enemy." For a moment, Vera was quiet. "Because you saved my daughter. That is more important than war. More than sides. You showed that people can be good. That they can choose kindness over violence." "Most people are good," Jake said. "My friends, the soldiers I served with, are good people. They just don't know the truth. They think they're keeping colonies safe. Keeping families safe. Your soldiers think they're protecting holy land just like you do." Vera said, "Then both sides are fighting a war based on lies." Jake agreed. "We are." They sat quietly and watched the sun go down. Jake could feel Vera's sadness through the bond. Her anger. But also her hope. "What if we could tell them the truth?" Jake said out of the blue. "Both sides. What if we could show them that this war doesn't have to happen? Vera stared at him. They would never listen. Your generals don't believe us. Our councils don't trust you. But they might hear us, Jake said. You are a well-respected commander. I saved your daughter because I'm a soldier. We're proof that both sides can work together. You think we could make peace? Vera sounded doubtful but interested. I think we have to try, Jake said. Because if we don't, this war is going to ruin everything. Your holy lands. Our colonies. Thousands more will die. For what? So businesses can make money? Vera got up and walked to the balcony's edge. It would be risky. Many people on both sides want this war to go on. They make money off of it. They would think we were traitors. Probably, Jake said. But we're already linked. The bond shows that people and your people can live together. We are proof. Jake could feel Vera's feelings changing through the bond. Her doubt. Her fear. But also how determined she was. She turned to him and said, We can't go back if we do this. Your own people would call you a traitor. You might never be able to come back to Earth. Jake thought about his family at home. His sister. His mom and dad. Would they get it? Would they hate him for this? But then he remembered Lily. About all the kids on both sides who would die if the war went on. Then we don't go back, Jake said. This is about soldiers following orders based on lies. We move forward. Together. Vera smiled. Jake had never seen her smile like that before. You are braver than I thought, human. Jake, he said. Just call me Jake. They began meeting with officers from both sides who were on their side. It was dangerous and slow work. A lot of people didn't even want to listen. When General Patterson heard about it, he called Jake a disgrace. He was threatened with a court-martial. But some people did listen. Rodriguez, a human captain, was unsure about the mission. Kesh, an alien diplomat, had been working for peace for years. They quietly and slowly built a network of people who wanted the war to end. Jake set up a meeting between Rodriguez and Vera and her council, which was the turning point. Rodriguez looked at the maps of sacred sites that had been destroyed. Rodriguez said quietly, They told us you were savages. They saw proof that companies were lying about what the aliens wanted. That you killed innocent people. That you had to be stopped. Vera said, And they told our people that humans wanted to kill us. That you thought we were animals. But here we are, talking like civilized people. Rodriguez stared at Jake. Do you really think we can end this? I have to believe it, Jake said. Because the other option is too awful. There were more meetings. More officers from both sides seeing the truth. Seeing that they had been tricked into fighting each other so that businesses could make money off of the war. It was hard. There were problems. Arguments. Times when it seemed like it couldn't happen. But Jake and Vera kept going. Their bond grew stronger and it seemed to make others stronger as well. People were hopeful when they saw that a human and an alien could work together and trust each other. Jake sat with Lily late one night and read her a story after a very hard meeting. She had curled up next to him and was almost asleep. Are you really going to stop the war? She asked sleepily. We're going to try, Jake said. Good, Lily said. I don't want anyone else to get hurt. Jake could tell she trusted him through the bond. She was completely sure that he would fix things. It was a heavy load. But it was also power. Go. Vera stood in the door and watched them. Jake could feel her feelings through the bond. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. Tomorrow we meet with the full human command, Vera said. It felt like family. They've finally agreed to listen to us. Jake nodded. Everything would be decided tomorrow. Either they would start real peace talks or both sides would call them traitors. Jake knew they were doing the right thing though because he could see Lily sleeping peacefully next to him. The bond had taught him that enemies could become friends. That knowledge could take the place of hate. If he could do it, maybe others could too. The peace talks were set to start at dawn. Jake didn't get much sleep the night before. He kept thinking about the proposal. The agreements that both sides had made. The treaty that would stop the fighting and make the companies honor the sacred lands. But everything changed at 3 a.m. The explosions began in the north. Jake could feel Vera wake up right away through the bond. He was already running toward the command center when alarms started going off all over the building. When Jake got there, Vera was giving orders. Many attacks in different parts of the city. Attacking both our positions and camps of people. These aren't attacks by the military. The patterns are wrong. Mercenaries, said Captain Rodriguez, who had been there as a liaison. His face was white. The businesses. They are aware of the talks for peace. Jake's blood turned cold. They're trying to start the war again. Make both sides believe that the other side broke the ceasefire. It's working, Vera said in a sad voice. I'm hearing that our troops are firing back. Your generals are getting soldiers ready to fight. Everything we've made is falling apart. Jake felt Lily wake up scared through the bond. She lived with other families in the residential area. For now it's safe. But the attacks were getting worse. Jake said, "We need to get to the place where we can talk. Let both sides see what's really going on." Another explosion cut him off. "If we can prove it's mercenaries," this one was closer. The building shook. Dust fell from the roof. Vera was already on the move. "Rodriguez, get in touch with your boss. Tell them to stop shooting. Come with me, Jake. We need to stop this before it's too late." They ran through hallways full of soldiers who were running. There were tracer rounds and fire outside that lit up the city. The air was full of smoke. Jake could hear people screaming in the distance. There was a vehicle waiting to take people. Jake and Vera got in with 4 alien soldiers. They sped through streets that had been torn apart by war. The buildings were on fire. There were bodies in the streets. "Refugee camps," Vera said out of the blue. "They're going after the camps. Kids, families. They want as many deaths as possible to make sure the war goes on." Jake was sick. He could feel Lily's fear rise through the bond. She was very scared. "Something's wrong," Jake said. "Lily. Where is she? I can sense her." "She's scared." Vera's face turned white. She took out a device for talking. "Residential Sector 7. Report on the status." "Not moving." Then a voice full of fear. "Under attack. The shelter was broken into by mercenaries. We're leaving, but..." The transmission stopped. Vera took hold of the driver. "Sector 7. Now." The car turned sharply and sped off in a new direction. Jake's heart was racing. He could feel Lily's fear through the bond. She was on the run. Hiding. There were loud bangs all around her. "Wait, Lily," Jake said softly. "We're coming." When they got there, it was a mess. Half of the shelter was ruined. There were fires all over the place. There were dead guards on the ground. And mercenaries in armor that didn't have any markings on it were moving through the rubble. Before the car came to a complete stop, Jake and Vera jumped out. The soldiers with them shot at the mercenaries, forcing them to retreat. Jake ran after the bond to the shelter. Like a compass, it drew him toward Lily. He found her with 3 other kids hiding behind a wall that had fallen down. There were tears and dust on her face. She ran to Jake when she saw him. "I knew you'd come," she cried. "I knew you'd find me." Jake picked her up. "You're safe now. I've got you." But they weren't safe. More hired soldiers were on their way. Jake could see them moving through the fog. These people weren't soldiers fighting for a cause. These were hired killers who didn't care who they hurt. Vera was shooting to protect their escape. "Get her out of here," she yelled at Jake. Jake picked up Lily and started running. The other kids did what they were told. He heard Vera fighting behind them. He could feel her determination through the bond. Her rage to protect her fiercely. They got to the vehicle for transport. Jake put Lily and the other kids inside. "Stay down," he said. "Don't move." After that he ran back to Vera. He couldn't go without her. The bond wouldn't let him go. They were now a family. He found her behind cover, pinned down. 3 hired guns were moving toward her. Jake didn't think about it. He just did it. He picked up a rifle from a dead soldier and started shooting. His aim was bad, but it was good enough to make the mercenaries hide. Vera took advantage of the distraction to move. She shot 2 of them with perfect aim. Jake was lucky and hit the 3rd one in the leg. The mercenary fell. "Go!" Jake yelled. "Get back to the car." They both ran. But more mercenaries showed up, blocking their way. Jake and Vera hid behind a broken wall. They were all around them. Jake could feel Lily's panic through the bond. She could tell they were in trouble. She was so scared. One of the hired guns stepped out into the open. He was big and wore a lot of armor. He held up a weapon that looked like it could break through walls. "Commander Vera," the mercenary yelled. His helmet made his voice sound strange. "The companies send their best wishes. Peace is bad for business." He pointed the gun at Vera. Jake saw it happen in slow motion. The mercenary's finger got tighter on the trigger. Vera started to move, but she was too slow. The weapon starts to fire. Jake didn't think. He jumped in front of Vera. The shot hit him right in the chest. It felt like being hit by a truck. Jake heard his ribs break. He felt something rip inside of him. He flew back and hit the ground hard. The edges of his vision went dark. He was unable to breathe. There was a hole in his chest. A big one. There was a lot of blood coming out. Too quickly. He could feel Lily scream through the bond. Knew how scared she was. He wanted to say that it was fine. That she would be safe. But he couldn't get his mouth to work. Vera was suddenly done with him. Her face took up all of his fading vision. She said, "No. No, you can't. You're connected. Your family." Jake tried to talk, but blood filled his mouth. The world was getting darker, cooler. He could feel himself fading away. "No," Vera yelled. This time louder. "The bond? Come here, Lily. Now." Jake heard little feet running. He felt small hands on his chest next to Vera's bigger ones. He felt both of them through the fading bond. Their fear. Their willpower. "Together," Vera said. "Like the ceremony. Give him our strength." They pushed down on his chest with their hands. And all of a sudden Jake felt warm. Warmth that pushed the cold away. Their skin began to shine a bright blue color. It was so bright that it hurt to look at. The warmth flowed into Jake like water filling a cup. It filled his chest, his arms, his legs, his head. It pushed the dark away. Made his heart race faster. He gasped and air rushed into his lungs. The pain began to go away. He felt their life force flowing into him through the bond, keeping him alive with nothing but willpower. The hole in his chest began to close. The ripped skin healed back together. The ribs that were broken healed. It should not have been possible. But the bond made it happen. Both Vera and Lily were glowing when Jake opened his eyes. Tired but shining. Jake's hands had a faint blue tint to them when he looked at them. A light under the skin that pulsed with his heart. "What?" Jake's voice was rough. "What did you do?" Vera said simply, "Saved you. The bond goes both ways. We shared a part of ourselves with you. A part of our life force. You have changed." Changed. Jake slowly got up. He felt strange. Somehow stronger. More conscious. The bond was louder in his head. More clear. He could feel Vera and Lily not just as far away things, but as if they were part of him. He came back when he heard guns going off. The fight was still going on. But now Jake could hear more troops coming. Real soldiers on both sides. The mercenaries were being surrounded. The mercenaries tried to get away, but it was too late. Soldiers from both Earth and space worked together to catch them. There was no doubt that the company was involved. The tools they use. The things they have to do. Everything led back to the mining companies. 3 days later, the talks about peace took place. Jake stood next to Vera while both sides signed the treaty. The companies had to go. The Holy Lands would be safe. There would only be human colonies in agreed-upon areas. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. After the signing, General Patterson went up to Jake. He said, "You could come home now. You've done your part. Served with honor, even if your methods were strange." Jake stared at his hands. At the faint blue light that showed he was now more than human. He looked at Lily as she held his hand. "This is home," Jake said, with Vera standing next to him. "These are my people now. People and aliens. I'm staying to help make things better. A place where people from both sides can live together." Patterson nodded slowly. "Well, I guess this is goodbye, soldier." "No, sir," Jake said. "It's not the end. It's a request. Please come back. Check out what we're making here. See what peace really looks like." Jake worked with both groups in the months that followed. He helped people who lived on Earth understand how aliens lived. Helped aliens learn about human culture. The bond made him a link between worlds that no one else could be. Lily learned both languages as she grew up. Both cultures. She stood for the new generation. One that didn't think of aliens and humans as different species, but just as people. Jake finally understood what the bond meant when he stood between worlds with blue light glowing faintly under his skin. It wasn't just about keeping one child safe. It was about keeping the future safe. A time when enemies could become family. Where fear was replaced by understanding. He was back home. Home at last and for good.